Everybody, welcome back to another episode of Podcast on Fifth Ave. I'm Jordan here with Taylor and Jenna, and to start, we're going to break down the two games that the Penguins have played since we last saw you. On Saturday, they took on the Maple Leafs at home with basically a below AHL level roster is what it felt like, and they won 7-1. So, Jenna, what were some of the things that stood out to you from that game? What did they do well to get to that point where they crushed them so much?
Well, it was funny because before when they were up, I want to say it was 3-0 or something along those lines. I tweeted and I was like, if the Penguins go on to win this game, I think this may actually be what breaks Toronto and their fan base. And I was like half joking. And then after that game, some of the Toronto beat reporters were tweeting how much like the fan base is completely at odds with this Maple Leafs team right now. So I was like, oh, I was kind of kidding, but also apparently it actually is really happening. And like, obviously that's kind of a spiral of what's happened, the way that they lost in the playoffs last year with kind of the success you expect this team to have. But it's one of those things that it's almost so surprising that it's not. I mean, you're without Jeff Carter. Letang didn't play that game as well, right? So Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, Brian Rust, Jeff Carter, Evan Rodriguez is your top line center. And apparently I've also taken over the Evan Rodriguez. I'm the number one stan right here. So I guess I'm fully aboard the Evan Rodriguez train here. But I mean, this is a team that should not, compared to what Toronto has, this Penguins lineup that they put on the ice, you would have expected this to be maybe like a 4-2 loss. Like they would be in it, but you don't expect them to win and to win the way that they did. And yeah, there were some crazy goals the way that they went in along those lines. But again, I think we go back to the depth scoring that we've seen from this team. I mean, when you have got, the way that they scored, you have goals from Marcus Pettersson. What did he have? A 3-point night? You have Marcus Pettersson, Drew O'Connor almost, has 2 goals. We're on Drew O'Connor hat trick watch. Boyle gets another one. Mike Matheson gets another one. Jason Zucker finds the back of the net, something that he said he really needed to do more this season. And we're seeing that from him kind of in this early span here. But they're getting scoring from guys that need to step up. And it really, we hear all the time, next man up mentality, next man up. That's exactly what this game was.
Absolutely. They looked completely dominant, and there was not a single point from what I could see. I only saw just a very, very little bit of the game, but it didn't seem like there was a single point where they felt like that game was out of their control. They set the tone and the pace from start to finish, and they really took advantage of the Maple Leafs' weaknesses. Jenna, what did you notice from the game that was part of what helped them look so dominant?
I mean, I think it was just.
Sorry, I meant Taylor. Oh my gosh, Lord above, is it Friday yet? Oh my God, yeah, you can go ahead, but oh my Lord.
Taylor, all you.
Anyway,
Taylor, you go ahead. God help me.
I mean, yeah, like you said, they dominated the whole game. It was funny before the game. I mean, obviously, we just went over all the guys that were missing. I was talking with another writer, and I think we were just guessing about who's going to be the alternate captain, because Dumoulin was the only alternate that was even still left. Their whole leadership core is out. And the writer I was talking to, he was like, well, but we know they're going to win. It just seemed so set up perfectly for that, for just like a monumental upset because of all, the offensive, threats that the Leafs have. But yeah, it was just everyone stepping up. I mean, I have a stat pulled up. After that game, they now have 14 different players score goals this season. And then, so it's 5 games into the season. The only other teams in NHL history to have more unique goal scorers 5 games into the season are the 85-86 Flames, who had 15, and the 83-84 North Stars, who had 16. So it's like, it's to have this many different guys step up, really not unprecedented, but I mean, it hasn't happened since the 80s, which, I mean, that really tells you the whole story of this. And I mean, just the plays guys were making. I mean, Mike Matheson scored on a wraparound. That is like my lasting memory from that game, because we've seen Mike Matheson try to score on wraparounds a lot. I think I tweeted earlier in the game, like, because I mean, he takes a lot of like good chances like that, and he's someone that's not afraid to, you know, move up in the play. And I tweeted, like, I don't know who made the decision for Mike Matheson as a child to like put him on defense instead of forward, but I think they screwed up, and then he did that, and I was like, I stand by my point, because I mean, yeah, the wraparound, that was just, once that happened, I was like, the Maple Leafs are not getting back into this game. You just let Mike Matheson score in a wraparound, but yeah, just, I mean, the guys like Drew O'Connor. After that game, he was like tied for the league lead in rookie scoring. He's still considered a rookie just because he didn't play enough games last season. But I mean, someone like him, I mean, he was pretty much invisible when he was up last season. And then this season, he's developing into, you know, someone that could be a legitimate power forward at this level. So, I mean, that's really been the story through that whole run to open the season. Just kind of guys stepping up unexpectedly, and something specific from that game too. Face-offs, they dominated in face-offs. I had the numbers pulled up. Teddy Blueger finished like 71%, something like 71%. Rodriguez 58%, Boyle 82%. But I mean, Blueger won, you know, 17 of them. And that was just interesting to me, because Matt Cullen was just in town working with the centers, like really just on face-offs. Like he was having video meetings with them on face-offs, talking about, you know, you need to have one kind of like your bread and butter move, and then you have to have other clubs in your bag. We're mixing metaphors, but that's the way that Brian Boyle explained it. But, you know, that's what they did. He worked with him really extensively in face-offs, and then the video meeting, and then, you know, right after he leaves, this is the result. So just guys stepping up, and then stuff like this where, you know, they're putting a concentrated effort into improving this one part of their game really, really helps them.
Yeah. And then on the flip, we had the game against Tampa last night, which was not as fun to watch. Taylor, talking to you, besides officiating, which was just all over the map awful last night, it was just so bad. What contributed to the Penguins only scoring one goal? What was going on with them last night?
Yeah, I mean, Vasilevsky is why they only scored one goal. He honestly, once they went down 3-0, it was like you knew they weren't coming back, because you're not going to put up 4 goals on Vasilevsky. But to get down in that hole, I mean, Point scored the first goal 31 seconds into the second period. At that point, it still seemed like maybe they could come back. And then the Penguins really controlled a lot of the second period. They just couldn't beat Vasilevsky. And then there was one shift where they were in Tampa's zone for, it was like 1 minute and 15 seconds, and they had a lot of good chances. And it was mostly the fourth line in there. And from watching that, it kind of gave you I guess, hope that, you know, the Penguins could come out and win this, because they were really dominating. And then right after that shift ends, Palat goes the other, Dumoulin turns the puck over, Palat goes the other way, scores. And the next, you know, face off, Penguins lose. Stamkos, you know, carries it into the zone, passes it to McDonough. McDonough scores 10 seconds later. So it was really just, you know, the Penguins controlled a lot of the game, but just that little less than a minute where the momentum shifted, I mean, that put them in a hole big enough that they couldn't come back out of, because Vasilevsky was the guy they had in net.
Yeah, he was lights out last night. He played phenomenally well. And I couldn't help but feel like if they hadn't blown the whistle before what should have been a goal for Brock McGinn, that game could have been totally different, because obviously we saw the Penguins just have their way with Vasilevsky in the season opener. But yeah, it felt like that was just one of those moments that solidified his confidence in net, and he decided, yeah, we're not gonna let that happen again. So he played really well. Jenna, is there anything from last night's game that's concerning to you about the Penguins' play, or was it for the most part pretty solid?
I think we kind of heard what Mike Sullivan said after the game, where basically he was like, I did like the way that our guys played tonight. And even watching, the way that the goals happened, it wasn't, it was a little mistake. It's mistakes that normally happen throughout the game. It's just the fact that Tampa Bay is a team that will capitalize on those mistakes when you make them, a lot more than other teams across the league will. I mean, that's one of the reasons why they're the defending Stanley Cup champs back to back. It was also one of those things, like, I feel like it was such a circumstantial type game. I mean, you look at the Penguins, they're coming off the win that they had over the Maple Leafs, the huge win. They're still dealing without, 5 of their incredibly key players. And the fact that Tampa was coming into that game off of a 5-1 loss to the Sabres, which the Sabres we can talk about at another point, because I did not think I would be uttering those words at all this season. I think it's like the first time the Sabres have beat Tampa since 2018 or something crazy like that.
And Craig Anderson. It wasn't it wasn't even Dustin Tokarski. It was Craig Anderson.
Yes, no, that's exactly right. I mean, that the Sabres are a whole other point of discussion, but I just think it was kind of like circumstantially what was happening. The Penguins were bound to lose a game. I think they were bound to lose a game, maybe not in this style, but it was one of those things that, like Taylor was saying too, they controlled a lot of the play, especially in that second period. You get a hot goalie, and sometimes it's just kind of hard to beat a guy like Vasilevsky, who's arguably the best, if not one of the top 3 netminders in the entire league. And I also think, looking at the highlights again and seeing, the way in which they gave those goals up, I don't think you can put all of it on Jari too, because I think there were a lot of people that were like, "Oh, this is." It's like, no. These were defensive mistakes. These were this is what Tampa does so well. And even that third goal, was that the McDonough goal? The third goal that was just this it was a ridiculous shot. It was one of those, like, even when I was watching it back on TNT last night, when I was watching Avs and Golden Knights, they were saying, they're like, yeah, he had no chance there. Like, even the getting that kind of it wasn't him type situation. I mean, they were kind of bound to lose a game in some way in this fashion. I think, every night, all of the guys that are stepping up aren't going to continue to, stay at that high level. There are going to be some ups and downs in terms of where they were there. So it's one of those things that it's just, you got to turn the page and move on. I don't think this should be a big concern, though, by any means.
Definitely not. I honestly don't think so either. Looking at the roster that they have right now.
Yeah.
It makes sense that they did finally lose in regulation. And I think that it's honestly encouraging, because whenever you fill in those gaps with Crosby and Malkin and then Letang and Carter and Rust, those are the kinds of guys that carry games, and they can't always. So it's good to know that those depth guys can come in and kind of pick up some of the effort should they need to. But I think what we really saw was just some sways in momentum, Tampa Bay being one of the best teams in the league, and guys who are not used to this much ice time just being the kinds of players that they are. And I think that the amount of scoring that we saw Saturday was the anomaly, not so much yesterday. But I think that they're probably going to be just fine. So let's take a quick break, and we will be right back. And we're back. So like we mentioned in the first segment, there are a handful of guys who are either hurt or on the COVID list. So Taylor, let's check in on how the injury updates are going. Tell us a little bit about what it's looking like for Crosby, for Malkin, for Rust. What's their timetable at this point? Do we even know?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. Crosby, they gave that original 6-week minimum. I think people read that initially as a target date. That was a minimum. We just only recently passed it. And then the update we got on Wednesday, Sullivan said that he is day to day. So that's encouraging. I don't think he'll play Thursday. It didn't sound like it, at least based off of what Sullivan said. But I mean, based off of practice, what they did on Wednesday, it seems like he's a possibility for Thursday. If not Thursday, then maybe Saturday against the Devils, because he was working on the top line with Gensel and Evan Rodriguez. He was working on the top power play. that was really that was the first time he did that. And when he spoke 5-6 days ago, he said really it was just about, working on physical contact and getting comfortable with that with his wrist, and then taking face-offs. And we have been seeing him do a lot of that. It was funny. Tuesday's morning skate, it was an optional morning skate, not many guys out there. Casper Bjorkquist recently recalled from Wilkes-Barre. Crosby went up to him and I guess asked him, can you work on physical contact with me? So Crosby's along the boards, trying to play the puck, and Casper's hitting him. And the whole time I'm watching this, I can't imagine Casper Bjorkquist, he's never played in the NHL before. It's his first recall. And then Crosby asks you to hit him while he's recovering. Casper's a very physical guy. He's big. I don't know. I'd be worried. I don't want to hit him too hard. If I hurt Crosby more, they're sending me down. But no, Crosby was fine. He handled it fine. He did face-offs right after. So very encouraging stuff from him day to day. Seems like it's only a matter of time now. Brian Rust, week to week, that really hasn't changed. He has been back on the ice, which is encouraging because it was a lower body injury. He hasn't been skating with the team. It's just been a one-on-one with, Ty Hennis, the skills coach. And then Malkin, he's not supposed to be back until December. That hasn't changed, I assume, but he has been back on the ice, actually skating fairly regularly. Sullivan said that they're on a kind of schedule where it's, a couple days on, a couple days off. But he is skating, a good amount of days in the week, which again, it's a knee surgery. It's going to take a while to come back from that. He's going to have to skate on his own for a while. He's going to have to, practice on contact probably a couple times and then practice with contact a couple times. So he still has a lot of steps to go, but it's good to see him back on the ice, and we actually saw him Wednesday in the media room. I tweeted the video. Chad Ruhwedel's doing his media availability, and there's a door behind it, leading to another room, and Malkin opens it and pops his head out, and then he goes back in, and then he pops back out and waves to everybody. And, I think I heard he told PR that he was going to do that, make an appearance, and they told him don't do that, don't walk out in the middle of Chad Ruhwedel's media availability. And he's like, I'm going to do it anyway. So yeah, good to see those guys making progress.
Yeah. Can we also talk about him physically making Mike Lang a milkshake? Because my God, I think I've watched that video, honest to God, maybe close to 100 times.
Oh, absolutely.
When he says we love you, I love you, Pittsburgh loves you, Russia loves you. It's Russia loves Mike Lang. Mike Lang's in Russia. That was the funniest video.
It was amazing.
You could see his happiness. He was so the whipped cream was starting off strong, getting excited. And then when he goes to Mike Lang and he's like, I know you like beer, but just milk. I'm this is gold.
Yeah, that was so funny. Yeah.
It really filled my heart. It was something that I didn't even know that I needed in my life. But as soon as they showed it at the arena, it's well, I need to find a way to watch this on repeat for the rest of eternity. It was so good. It's good. If I could sidetrack, speaking of funny videos the Penguins have put out, it was after the win over Toronto. They give away the helmet every game, and the win before, they had given it to Sullivan because it was his, the win to put him in the franchise lead. So he gives it to the next guy, and it was Teddy Blueger who didn't score. But he had a very good game. He, shut down the Matthews line and all that. But the video they put out, I love those videos when they change the helmets because the way the guys get hyped for that, they'll say Teddy Blueger and they're screaming and Kapanen's up, he's twirling his shirt. Jason Zucker was standing up. If you watched in the video, they have their bench sheets for the locker stall and he's opening and closing the bench sheet to make noise. Yeah, those I love those videos after wins when they put those out because they're just so chaotic. That's all some of the best stuff. That's awesome. So good to know that everybody's. Go ahead.
Oh, no. This is total different tangent. You go ahead.
Our tangents are fun, though. I really love them. Yeah. But, okay, so, those guys are making progress. Awesome. How about the guys on the COVID list? And also, how is everybody feeling about that? Because you said they're voluntarily testing every day after both Gensel and Zach Aston Reese tested positive. So what does that look like? How does everybody feel about it?
Yeah, I mean, so obviously, the last 2 seasons, they made it through without a single in-season, positive test. And then it has not worked out that way this season. Gensel and Aston Reese tested positive in camp. Now, the NHL, all the Penguins are vaccinated. And if a player is vaccinated, they only have to be tested once a week for the NHL protocols. After Gensel and Aston Reese tested positive, the Penguins decided to up that to every day and kind of go back to spacing out meetings more, just because, they don't know where guys are getting it. But if they have it, even if they're asymptomatic, they don't want that spreading. I mean, because Aston Reese had it pretty bad. He said, he was down and out, and he said, he couldn't work out for 12 days until he got his heart checked out, like he had it so bad. So they'd obviously like that to prevent that from being spread. So testing every day. Now, that does open up the possibility that you might have a inconclusive test or a false positive that, puts a guy on the protocol. We saw that with Tristan Jarry, where it was a false positive. But again, since they're testing every day, you only need 2 negative tests to come out of protocol. So that was easily cleared up. And I don't know. I personally think that testing every day and having, Jarry miss a practice is a whole lot better than, guys passing it on and potentially having, more situations like Aston Reese. So right now, the only, positive cases are Jeff Carter, who has remained asymptomatic. Sullivan actually said he believes he can come out of protocol by the end of the week. He wasn't sure which day, which is big. Getting Jeff Carter back for the center depth. And then Chris Letang. Chris Letang is symptomatic. Sullivan didn't say, what those symptoms are, how symptomatic he is. But, definitely, I think good that they call that early instead of, having Letang hang around the team, pass it on to other guys, had they only been tested once a week. So Letang out 10 days from the onset of symptoms minimum. That's the NHL protocols. So he'll still need, the 2 negative tests to return, but 10 days from the onset of symptoms, just because he is, one of the few guys experiencing symptoms.
And it is kind of unfortunate almost, because you never want this to happen. But in terms of timing wise, I mean, they're missing so many guys already. It's almost like if there are going to be people that get it, it's better to have it at the beginning of the season versus end of the season. I mean, again, COVID in itself, you don't wish it on anybody, but if it is, that is part of the risks of what's happening right now. When we're seeing the league, we're seeing it kind of across the league. It's been fascinating. It's also going to be fascinating to see, how different leagues are handling it, because like Taylor said, with the fact that they're having them being tested, they're voluntarily getting tested every day.
Yeah.
With the NFL, it was originally the timeline for the NFL was they were having them get tested if vaccinated players were only every other week. And the players were the ones pushing, saying, hey, we want to be tested every week. We don't want to risk this. We want to feel more comfortable. And I think, the NHL kind of said something similar where it's like, we want this to be a weekly thing. And now the guys are taking more initiative because they're like, if God forbid it's going to happen, we want to catch it early.
Yeah, which is responsible. And that's the right thing to do for sure. And yeah, I think that being able to hopefully deal with this up front at the beginning of the season will kind of allow them room to breathe later in the season. So they hopefully won't have to be missing guys because of this later on, when we may potentially be trying to make a push for the playoffs. But it's good that they're at least progressing through the protocol, and that even though Chris Letang is symptomatic, it sounds like he's going to be okay. So that is good.
He spoke during training camp too. Because he, obviously had his own health issues before with the stroke and the hole in his heart. And he did say at the start of camp that any, pre-existing conditions he has, it does not put him at a higher risk. So,
okay, that's good.
That's good, because, Aston Reese had a, pretty bad time, but, Letang with his own health issues, it seems like that's not going to play a role here. So hopefully he's feeling better soon.
And just seeing the guys that did go through it be able to get back on the ice so soon, that is something that's definitely a really good sign. And obviously, as we all do, we just hope the best for them and hope that everybody everybody gets through it okay and just kind of keeps moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, because Gensel was asymptomatic, and when he talked about it, he sounded like he just kind of he was just bored. Because I mean, he has it. He can't. I think I think he was in a hotel, or his wife was in a hotel. Like they couldn't be obviously they couldn't be together during that. So he said he was just on a Peloton and reading books about Tiger Woods and doing puzzles. So hopefully, guys, if they do get it, it's more like that, and less than what Aston Reese went through.
Yeah. Hopefully they recover fully and recover soon. But let's take one more break and then be right back. All right, we're back. So Taylor, you learned something like a fun, fascinating fact today after the Penguins skate. Casey DeSmith has a new mask, and a friend of his designed it. Can you tell us a little bit about what that deal is?
Yeah, so Casey DeSmith, he had a new mask for the first time at practice on Wednesday, and we couldn't see it close from where we were, but the Penguins equipment staff, they have their own Instagram. I think it's just Penguins_equipment, and they had posted front, side, back views, and you look on the back, Teddy Blueger's signature is on it. Like I looked, there's a 53, so is that Teddy Blueger's signature? And I'm Googling like Teddy Blueger autograph pucks and like cross-referencing. I'm like, that's Teddy Blueger's signature. But yeah, so the sides are Penguins of Madagascar playing disc golf, and then on the back it's Dwight Schrute, which I don't know, if you had asked me 3 things about Casey DeSmith, it's that he plays disc golf, he loves The Office, and he has a bald cat. But the cat's not on the mask, that's irrelevant. But yeah, Dwight Schrute's on the back, and the Penguins Madagascar are playing disc golf, and then Teddy Blueger's signature. So, he spoke after practice on Wednesday, and I asked him, and I said, just what was the design process like for your new mask? And is that, why did Teddy Blueger sign the back of it? And he said, going back to last season, his mask was pretty plain. It was just black, gold stripe down the middle, Penguins logo on the sides. And he said, during the year, Teddy Blueger would chirp him and say, it looks generic. It looks like you got it at Dick's Sporting Goods. So to avoid, I guess, the chirps from Teddy this year, Casey said, I challenge you to do a better one. And so Teddy designed the whole mask, which is just incredible. He said he put some stuff in there that, that he thought was goofy, just to see if Casey would keep it. Like, on the chin, a lot of goalies put their numbers, and Casey DeSmith is number 1. So instead of a number 1, he spelled out 1, just to see if Casey would keep it. And Casey kept it. I guess that he didn't make any changes. He said, then they brought out Teddy to talk to us too, because then Teddy had to explain, and Teddy said, there really wasn't a whole lot of back and forth. It was just he designed Casey's mask, and Teddy said, I guess a lot of guys in the room like it, so we might be doing more in the future. But yeah, just so finally, he did say that, because obviously Casey big into The Office, Teddy had never seen The Office before, so he did start. Yeah,
which is same reaction right there.
He said that, so he started binging The Office, though, for background to make, Casey's mask. He said he's up to season 6. He did say as he was walking out, and he's like, maybe I'll finish the series and I can, see new characters to put on. So I don't know. But the guys who come in season 9, Plop, the other guy who looks like Dwight, maybe they'll be in a mask in the future. But
oh my God, they don't deserve to be on a mask. That's its own tangent.
The specific
seasons 8 and 9.
The specific Dwight scene that is on it is when Dwight is named Salesman of the Year, and he's at, I guess the company conference, and he's giving like the speech where it's like real dramatic, and Casey's up at the podium like describing this to us, and he's like kind of like acting out the scenes of like Dwight on the podium. So I don't know. It's a good looking mask, and the backstory.
That looks great.
It's funny.
Yeah.
I will say I don't know how I feel about, because he has darker pads. Gold pads. So Jari has the all black pads. He did go with a darker helmet this year. Casey's helmet is like lighter in color. There's a lot of white on it. I don't know how it looks with the dark pads, but Teddy Blueger is fine with it, I guess. Who am I to say?
Yeah. He's the only opinion that really matters, apparently.
We need to know Teddy Blueger's thoughts on Scott's tots. That's like the pressing information that I need.
Oh yes, Scott's tots and dinner party, because there is a right answer to both of those questions, and I'm very curious what his answer would be. So can you please make sure that sneaks into some availability of his in the future?
Yeah. Anytime Teddy talks, just more office questions like, have you made it to the 8 yet? Like, what do you think about the move to Philly?
This is what people really want to know. Can you answer? Thank you.
Yeah.
We'll talk to you about hockey in a little bit, Teddy, but like, these are the questions.
I mean, it was funny on a Wednesday. They brought him out. There were no questions about hockey. It was just like 5 or 6 questions about the process of designing Casey's mask. So funny. I love availabilities like that.
Yeah. And honestly, what a cool thing too to have from, to know that your teammate did that. And that, I mean, like, again, we talk about how close this team is on like a consistent basis. Like, I think that right there is like the epitome of all of it. Like, not only did Casey was like, okay, fine, you do it then. And he went along with all of it. And Teddy's like, I'm going to have some fun with this. Like, I think there could be some fun things kind of with this throughout the season too.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. And we talked about goalie pads way back before the season even started, and masks are just another one of those things that are super fun. So just really quick, do you want to rattle off some of your favorite goalie masks of all time? Taylor, what are a couple of your favorites that you remember?
Yeah, the first one that pops into mind just all time is, I like if it's like an outdoor game or whatever, goalies tend to do something, especially fun or fitting for the occasion at least. And the one that stands out is Fleury's mask for the Stadium Series in 2014 when they played the Blackhawks. It was at Heinz Field. And because it was at Heinz Field, he wanted to, pay tribute to the Steelers. So he literally just made it look like a Steelers helmet, with a stripe on the side. He had his number 29, like where it would go on like a football helmet. He even had like the bottom of it painted to look like, like the just a gold, like an actual football helmet. But yeah, it was really cool if you Google it. 2014, the Stadium Series. I don't know so much about, all-time favorites, but my current favorite in the system now, Philip Lindbergh, the one he has down in Wilkes-Barre. It is very simple. It's the logo very big on the front and kind of in the sides. And then kind of peeking out behind it is the logo for like the Finnish national team, which I think is really cool because I feel like we don't see that a whole lot. Even if like a guy does play internationally, mixing in, the hockey, whatever, their country governing body, like their logo into mass. I think that's really cool. It's very simple. It's really just the logo, the Finnish logo, and then I think his nickname on the back. But I mean, I think it is funny that I think 3 or 4 goalies in the system do have the Penguins of Madagascar on their helmet. Like, I mean, because I don't think Jari has them. He might, I don't know, but I mean, obviously DeSmith. I know Alex Dorio does. I think Napier might. But yeah, I mean, it's just funny how those pop up every year. I don't know. So they have to pay, what is that, Pixar royalties? But it's funny how we see the Penguins of Madagascar every year on at least somebody.
That is awesome. Jenna, do you have any favorites?
Well, it was funny because when we were talking about, before the podcast, what, the things we were going to chat about and goalie masks and stuff, I was just Googling a couple. And it's one of those, like, you have to see them to remember them type things. And I know Penguins fans aren't the fondest of Bruins fans. I understand that. But Tim Thomas's with the giant bear head, it's just one of those things that you're like, that is just so cool. It's cool to see, obviously, the goalie mask just kind of take on the personality of not only the guy, but the team itself. Yeah. Henrik Lundqvist's, the like old Rangers logo with Lady Liberty and the big star. Like those are ones that you just like, you remember those. Like, I feel like that, and not to be like, oh, I'm young in that sense, but like those were kind of the masks I saw, like as I was really getting interested in hockey, as I was a kid, things along those lines, just kind of seeing those masks. Granted, I'm going to say that, and then they're going to be like, "Oh, it was 2011." I'm like, "Okay, I wasn't at that point." But you know, the old, I don't want to say old time, but like the masks you remember as a kid that you saw, and you're like, "Whoa, those are so cool." Those are two of mine that I saw, and I was like, "Oh yeah, those are fantastic."
The one that just popped into mind, Hiller with the Ducks. He had it. I googled it. It looks like this was about 10 years ago that he had it, but it was solid matte black with like an actual like metallic gold cage. Very simple. I mean, no designs, anything like that, but just the matte black with like. Oh God! You don't see that a whole lot. You don't see the metallic kind of cage, but he's someone. I mean. Again, I guess that was 10 years ago, but I remembered it. So just very unique. One I like around the league this year is Craig Anderson's Sabres mask. It's just really cool. He kind of has the Sabres on the side, the buffalo on the side, and then there's like the skyline and stuff like that. I remember when it came out, cool. I texted my friend who covers the Sabres, Julianne Pelusi, like, did Craig Anderson just sign there? Like, because he had a really sick mask idea, because like when he signed, like, how old is he? Like 40, pushing 40. He signed like league minimum. Yeah. It's like, why did he go to Buffalo at his age? But he must have, just because he had a really cool mask idea, because he's one of the cooler ones around the league. It looks really nice.
Did it for the logo.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Why not? At that point in your career, go for it. Who cares? You do you, Craig. Yeah, there's some really sick masks, and hopefully Tristan Jarry has started the last 4 or 5 games, so I'm not sure when we're going to see maybe the game, what will be tonight, against the Flames, right? Is it the
Calgary.
Flames?
Yeah, Calgary.
Yep. Maybe we'll see the debut of that Teddy Blueger original. Who knows? Yeah. But thank you, as always, for listening to us here over at Podcast on Fifth Ave. Make sure you're following us on Twitter to stay connected, and you're subscribed wherever it is you listen to podcasts. And we will see you again next Thursday for another episode.